Okay, so
I'm okay.
Are you okay?
You continue. Go on.
Okay. Ooh, I don't know if I can continue.
That's sad,
it's
isn't
gonna
it?
Get,
yeah.
Well, actually, no. The article's gonna get better.
Good, good,
okay.
because we want to help the stray animals. We don't want these poor dogs and cats put to sleep anymore. Let's go on.
Okay, but before we get into the good, positive things, I do have something sad to say, which is in our article, okay? It says sometimes poison was even used as a way to decrease the number of strays in an area.
It's not nice.
No. So our first vocabulary word, decrease, D-E-C-R-E-A-S-E, decrease. It's a verb. To decrease something means to become smaller in size or number. The opposite of decrease is increase, I-N-C-R-E-A-S-E, increase. Let's use it in an example sentence, the word decrease. There are more cars on the road since the price of oil decreased.
Interesting.
So they're going to use, they used poison.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
not nice either. It's a very painful way to die.
Probably very painful. It's like giving them, I don't know what type of poison they would use, but to make them suffer.
Rat poison, strychnine.
But pretty much to kill them also.
Yeah.
And then we saw the word stray again, but this time it's used as a noun.
As a noun, adjective, noun, and verb. Okay.
So we can say stray dog, or we can simply just say stray.
A stray. A stray dog. Generally, it's considered to be a dog if you say I saw a stray, because that's the most common and certainly the largest animals. However, back in the article, it says these methods, poisoning and trapping and all that stuff, these methods were not only cruel, but also ineffective. So a method is a way of doing something. Getting rid of strays by poisoning them and such was not only cruel or mean, it's mean and painful for the dogs, it's also, and this is most important, really, it's ineffective. If there's something that's ineffective, it doesn't work the way it should.
So it's not decreasing the number of strays, right?
And they're trying to decrease the number of strays. They're poisoning them, but it's still not decreasing the number of strays. The problem is still there. So it's kind of like the dogs are going through all this trouble and pain and bad stuff for no good reason. So why are we doing it? Good question. We're going to find out more after this. And before we move on, we should talk about this interesting sentence construction. The way this sentence is put together is a little interesting. It said the methods were not only cruel, but also ineffective. Basically, what we're saying is the methods were cruel and ineffective. When you're putting two things together like that, you can say, you know, something very directly, they were cruel and ineffective. Or you can make it slightly more interesting by adding them together, but doing it in a different way. Not only, but also. The movie I saw last weekend was not only exciting, but also really interesting. So it was both exciting and interesting. All right, now we can move on with the article. So if the methods they were using were cruel but also ineffective, they had to find a better way, right? You gotta find a better way if what you're doing is ineffective. It's just not working.
Our article says animal control officers and animal shelters now use a method called trap, neuter, vaccinate, release. TNVR.
Okay.
So we'll go into detail about each step of this method, but first let's briefly talk about what each word means, okay?
Sure.
So first, animals are trapped, which means we catch them, and we catch the animals so that they can't escape, okay?
Yes, that's of course trapping. You need to get the animals in a place you can help them. The next thing that they do is a little bit unpleasant, but it's for the animals' health and it's for our health. They neuter the animals. I can't believe you're making me explain this word neuter. Well, if you've ever been to science class, you know that boys have parts and girls have parts. And some of these parts are different. And some of these different parts are used to make babies. Well, if you remove the parts that make babies, on boys, they're too little, you know, then they can't make babies. That is to neuter something. So the best thing you can do for your pet, unless you're a professional animal breeder and you have like a dog farm, which you probably shouldn't, is to neuter them, is to remove the ability to have babies. And that actually calms animals down a lot too. It makes their behavior a lot nice. They won't chew your shoes or pee everywhere and stuff like that. So neutering is basically stopping them from having babies. No more stray animals that can have babies. no more stray animals in the future.
So the numbers will decrease.
The numbers will have to go down because they can't make more. So trap, neuter, V, vaccinate.
Vaccinate. Okay, so if you vaccinate an animal, you're doing exactly that.
Medicine.
You're giving them a vaccine, V-A-C-C-I-N-E, which is, like you said, a medicine.
Yeah, basically.
That you put into the animal's body, and it protects them from a disease.
That's right. Babies get it. Human babies get it when they're very young, and this is why we don't get things like smallpox or polio or diseases like that anymore. We're vaccinated against them. So they've trapped it, they've neutered it, they've vaccinated it, and then it's time for freedom. It says, then the animal is released. If something is released, it's let go. It's let out of the cage, back into nature, back into the wild.
So they don't actually keep these animals in the shelters. No, they actually put them back out.
That's right. If they can find a home for them, they'd love to do that. But of course, some people can't take them. But it's better to have healthy animals that can't make babies out there on the streets than the opposite.
Yes, and then our article says this method was first developed as a means to control stray cat populations.
Oh, really? Cats? Was the first goal. Oh, I didn't know that.
TNVR was first used for cats.
I guess because cats are small and it's hard to kind of know where they're going, so it's a little bit easier for them. And because it proved to be very effective in the long term, so it was adapted for dogs. So basically it worked with cats, and someone said, hey, if it worked for cats, we should do it for dogs. But of course, cats and dogs are different, so they had to change it a little bit. That is to adapt. To adapt is to change to fit a new environment or a new circumstance. All right, for example, we could say, I adapted my way of speaking when I talked to the police officer. I said, yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Very polite,
Very polite when you talk to the police officer or someone important. You might change or adapt the way you speak. And there we also saw that this TNVR policy was very effective in the long term. It worked very well in the long term. In the long term is just basically a phrase that means over a long period of time. We're often comparing it to something that might happen in the short period of time, and then we're sort of saying, but over the longer period, over many, many years, for example, this is the way it would go. For example, you might not like going to the gym, but in the long term, exercise is really good and important for your body. Yeah, it's true.
So going back to our article, it says TNVR is a fairly basic concept. Our third vocabulary word, concept, C-O-N-C-E-P-T, concept, is really just an idea of how something is or how something should be done.
Yeah, right? Basically.
For example, parents need to teach their children the basic concepts of right and wrong from young.
Yeah, the basic idea, how it works, that kind of thing. First, it says the animals are caught and then neutered so they can have more offspring. We kind of explained this. They catch the animals, their funny parts, so they can have more babies. Offspring is just another term for babies, or the new generation that's produced by, you know, what people do. So you could talk about children being, you know, offspring. You know, my grandparents had 3 offspring. I have 2 aunts and, of course, my mom or something like that. But basically we use it for animals, especially farm animals, that type of thing. The children of an animal is its offspring.
Okay, and then our article says, then they are given a health check. Okay. Okay, so they need to make sure that they're healthy.
Yeah, make sure there's no worms or fleas or things like that.
And vaccinated for diseases such as rabies.
Very important.
Okay, so our fourth vocabulary word, disease, D-I-S-E-A-S-E, disease, is an illness or a sickness which affects a person, an animal, or even a plant.
True,
okay, here's an example sentence. Cancer is a very serious disease that affects many people each year.
Yes, and animals too.
Yeah.
Animals get cancer.
We also learned the word rabies, right? Which is a type of disease. And I think when animals have rabies, they kind of like foam in the mouth.
Well, they get hydrophobia. They're no longer to accept water, and it also makes them very aggressive. And a pet with rabies has to be put to sleep. They have to be killed or destroyed. They can't live because they're very, very dangerous. And anyways, let's get back to the healthy animals after they've been TNVR TNV'd, it says finally they are released, that's the R, back to where they were taken. So if they catch them out in the country somewhere, they take them back to that place because that's where they feel comfortable. They might even have a little hole that they sleep in or something like that. So they try to do it in the best way and the healthiest way for the animals.
So our article tells us how TNVR is different from the previous methods we talked about, which was to trap, to put them to sleep, and to poison them, okay? It says, unlike capturing and killing the animals, which doesn't significantly reduce populations, TNVR actually costs much less.
Really? So it works much better than the old method and costs less money than the old method. Wow, that sounds pretty awesome.
Our fifth vocabulary word, significantly. S-I-G-N-I-F-I-C-A-N-T-L-Y.
Wow,
that's a long
was
word.
Fantastic. Do it again. S-I-G-N-I-F-I-C-A-N-T-L-Y.
Good job! Okay, significantly is an adverb, and it means in an important way or to an important degree. If something changes significantly, it makes a big difference.
That's right.
For example, smoking can significantly increase your chances of getting lung cancer.
Right. If you take off the ly, of course, you'll have an adjective, significant. Something important, something you should pay attention to is significant. And we also had another verb there, to significantly reduce the stray population. To reduce is sort of like to decrease. It's to get smaller, to get lower, to become less in number. For example, the temperature will always be reduced during the winter months, right? It always goes down. It'll be lower. It'll be colder during the winter months.
I don't like the cold.
No.
What about you?
I'm not really a big fan.
Okay, going back to our article, it says, it is also much more humane.
Much more humane.
That's the important part.
Very important.
The word humane has an E at the end of human, you guys can kind of guess.
Humane. Humane.
Is an adjective, and it means to treat people or animals in a way that is not cruel and causes them as little suffering as possible. So we're not putting them in pain, we're not being cruel, we're not killing them, we're being humane.
Absolutely. The animals are captured and released quickly, so the experience isn't very hard on them, all right? So that basically means they're probably in the doctor's office or the vet's office, an animal doctor we often call a vet, for a very short period of time, so it's not hard on the animals. It's not difficult for the animals. It's not scary for the animals.
Or stressful.
Stressful, things like that. Something that is hard on you is something that's difficult to live through. It's really a terrible, uncomfortable, awful time that you don't want to remember. And of course, if you were a dog and you were kidnapped by these big monkeys and they started sticking things in you
and cut off your...
and cut parts off you, you'd think, this is horrible, this is very hard on me. Well, if it only lasts for a few hours and they're back where they were taken from, you know, that afternoon, it's much easier on them, right? Hard on someone or easy on someone, these are the opposites.
However, this method only works over time.
True.
And doesn't remove the animals from the streets.
It does not. They can still get hit by a car or other bad things like that, yes.
If something happens over time, it happens slowly during a long period. So that's what over time means. It's not gonna fix the problem right away, but it will slowly and probably surely decrease the number of stray animals on the streets.
There you go. So we might have healthier stray animals on the streets. We might have less or fewer animals in years to come, but there are still a lot of animals out there today who need places to go. And that's where shelters and adoption come in. These are the better solutions for animals. Adoption is basically when you take something that is not part of your family, that was not born to your family, but you bring it into your family. You make it part of your family. You adopt a pet, right? You take that pet into your home and feed it and take care of it, and it might sleep in your living room or even on your bed. And people also will sometimes adopt children. If they can't have children or if they want to help out a kid who's got no mom or dad, they will adopt that kid, bring them into the family, and treat them as their own. And this is where kind people come in, or in our article, this is where shelters and adoption come in, when we use this phrase, we're talking about this is the part of the story where they become important, where we need to start paying attention to them, focusing on them, or when they become one of the big actors, one of the big things that is going to change things, all right? So when we're talking about animals out on the street, and now they're healthy and they can't have babies, but what's even better? Shelters and adoption. This is where we start thinking about shelters and adoption, because of course it's better for the pets to have somewhere to live, someone to have someone to feed them, somewhere where they're safe, and a home or an animal shelter is of course that place.
So we've come to the end of our article.
We have. I feel we've done some good.
We have.
We didn't have to neuter anything too.
No.
Whew, that would have been awkward.
But we do still have our chat question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.